Officer Ryan Mitchell's words sliced through the air like a blade as Dr. Nicole Bennett approached the metal detector. His sneer was unmistakable, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Dr. Nicole Bennett froze. Conversation stopped. A lawyer with a stack of files turned to stare. A court clerk's mouth fell open. Officer Mitchell crossed his arms, blocking her path to the security checkpoint. "You lost or something? The food stamp office is 3 blocks down." Behind him, Detective Carla Rodriguez grabbed her partner's arm, whispering urgently, but Officer Mitchell was just getting started. "Come on, spit it out. What's your excuse for being here? Baby daddy got arrested again." The professional woman in the white blazer stood perfectly still. Her briefcase remained steady in her grip. But something dangerous flickered in her eyes. What Officer Mitchell couldn't have imagined was that this so-called ghetto rat was about to destroy his entire world. Have you ever completely misjudged someone? Dr. Nicole Bennett had stood in her office at Baltimore Police Department headquarters, reviewing the case file that would take her to the Philadelphia County Courthouse. As the newly appointed police chief, she had made enemies with her aggressive reform agenda. Today's testimony in the excessive force lawsuit would likely make more. Dr. Nicole Bennett had spent her career climbing through law enforcement ranks. She earned her doctorate in criminal justice while working patrol, survived 2 internal affairs investigations launched by jealous colleagues, and implemented community policing programs that actually worked. The Baltimore City Council had appointed her chief, making her one of the youngest black female police chiefs in the state. Her phone buzzed. A text from Detective Carla Rodriguez, heading to the Philadelphia courthouse for security detail. "See you there." Dr. Nicole Bennett smiled. Rodriguez didn't know she'd be testifying today. The case involved Officer Kevin Larson, terminated after body camera footage showed him choking an unarmed teenager. Larson's lawyer had subpoenaed Dr. Nicole Bennett, hoping to discredit her as a diversity hire with an agenda against white officers. They had no idea what they were walking into. Meanwhile, across the city, Officer Ryan Mitchell was starting what he assumed would be another routine day. He had years on the force, 2 commendations for proactive policing, and a spotless record according to anyone who mattered. Sure, there had been complaints, multiple formal grievances, but the union handled those. Civilians always complained when real police work got done. Officer Mitchell's personnel file, locked away in internal affairs, told a different story. Mrs. Dorothy Hayes, age 73, claimed he had shoved her during a traffic stop. College student Andre Jefferson said Officer Mitchell had called him boy and threatened arrest for looking suspicious while walking to class. Sophia Martinez alleged he had made crude comments about cleaning ladies when she tried to report a break-in. Each complaint had been dismissed due to insufficient evidence or misunderstanding. Officer Mitchell's lieutenant had a simple philosophy: support the uniform, question the civilian. But patterns have a way of surfacing. That morning, Officer Mitchell dressed carefully in his Class A uniform. Courthouse security was a prestigious duty, visible, important, with minimal paperwork. He had requested the assignment specifically. Downtown meant dealing with lawyers, judges, and other professionals who understood respect for authority. It also meant encountering people he considered beneath him. As Dr. Nicole Bennett drove toward the courthouse, she made a decision that would change everything. Instead of wearing her police uniform, she would dress as a civilian. Her lawyer had suggested it might make her testimony more relatable to the jury. She chose a navy blazer, cream blouse, and her grandmother's pearl earrings. Professional, but approachable. The only police identification she carried was her badge and credentials, tucked inside her briefcase next to the case files. Officer Mitchell arrived at the courthouse early, chatting with fellow officers about weekend plans and overtime opportunities. Detective Carla Rodriguez and Sergeant Mike Donovan were part of the security detail. Both seasoned officers with solid reputations. "Busy day ahead," Rodriguez mentioned, checking her assignment sheet. "Bunch of high-profile cases on the docket." "Hope we don't get any troublemakers," Officer Mitchell replied, adjusting his duty belt. "I hate dealing with people who don't know their place." Donovan raised an eyebrow but said nothing. In his years on the force, he had learned to pick his battles. Officer Mitchell's attitude was problematic, but confronting it directly never ended well. Better to document incidents and let leadership handle it. Except leadership wasn't handling it. As the courthouse filled with morning traffic, Officer Mitchell positioned himself at the main security checkpoint. This was his domain, his rules. Lawyers and judges received respectful nods. Well-dressed business people got efficient service. Everyone else got scrutiny. Rodriguez noticed his pattern immediately. The way Officer Mitchell's demeanor shifted based on appearance, how his voice changed depending on who approached. She had seen it before, but never in such an obvious setting. Dr. Nicole Bennett pulled into the courthouse parking garage, reviewed her testimony notes one final time, and stepped out of her Honda Accord. She had no idea that Officer Mitchell was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. But she was about to find out exactly how broken the system had become. And more importantly, she was about to fix it. The question wasn't whether Officer Mitchell would reveal his true nature. It was how spectacularly he would destroy himself in the process. The security checkpoint buzzed with typical courthouse activity when Dr. Nicole Bennett approached. Officer Mitchell stood behind the metal detector like a gatekeeper, his posture radiating authority. Rodriguez manned the X-ray machine while Donovan supervised the visitor entrance. Dr. Nicole Bennett joined the line behind a middle-aged white attorney who Officer Mitchell waved through with a respectful, "Have a good day, counselor." The contrast would become painfully clear in seconds. "Next," Officer Mitchell called, not bothering to look up from his clipboard. Dr. Nicole Bennett stepped forward, setting her briefcase on the conveyor belt. "Good morning, officer." Officer Mitchell's head snapped up. His expression immediately soured as he took in her appearance. Professional, but clearly not part of the courthouse establishment. His voice dropped its courteous tone. "What's a ghetto rat like you doing in my courthouse?" The words hit like a physical blow. Conversations around them stuttered to a halt. A court reporter fumbled her coffee cup. The attorney who had just passed through spun around, his face shocked. Dr. Nicole Bennett's training kicked in. Stay calm, document everything, don't escalate. "Excuse me." Officer Mitchell stepped closer, blocking her path completely. "You heard me. The food stamp office is 3 blocks down. This is a courthouse, not a welfare center." Rodriguez looked up sharply from the X-ray machine. "Mitchell, what are you—" "I got this, Rodriguez." Officer Mitchell waved her off dismissively, then turned back to Dr. Nicole Bennett with renewed aggression. "Ma'am, you obviously don't belong here. Why don't you save us both some time and head to wherever you're supposed to be?" More people had stopped to watch. A young black lawyer in an expensive suit shook his head in disgust. An elderly white woman clutched her purse tighter, unsure whether to intervene or flee. Dr. Nicole Bennett maintained her composure, though her jaw tightened slightly. "Officer, I have business in this courthouse. May I please proceed through security?" Officer Mitchell's face twisted into an ugly smile. "Business? What kind of business could someone like you possibly have here?" He gestured broadly, making sure his voice carried to the growing audience. "Let me guess, your baby daddy got arrested again. Or maybe you're here because you can't pay your parking tickets." The crowd grew larger. Someone's phone came out, then another. Rodriguez stepped away from her post, clearly uncomfortable with the spectacle unfolding. "Mitchell, maybe we should just process her through like everyone else. Maybe you should mind your own business, Rodriguez." Officer Mitchell's voice carried real menace now. He was enjoying this, feeding off the attention. "I've been doing this job for years. I know how to spot troublemakers, and this one's got problem written all over her." He pointed at Dr. Nicole Bennett's briefcase, still sitting motionless on the conveyor belt. "What's in the bag? Probably stolen credit cards, am I right? Or maybe some sob story paperwork about why the system owes you something." A court clerk had emerged from behind the information desk, drawn by the disturbance. 2 more officers appeared from different directions. Word was spreading quickly through the courthouse security network. Dr. Nicole Bennett's hands remained perfectly steady, but her voice carried a new edge. "Officer, I would like to speak with your supervisor, please." Officer Mitchell threw his head back and laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed off the marble walls. "My supervisor, lady. I am the supervisor here at this checkpoint. This is my security station, my metal detector, my rules." He stepped even closer, invading her personal space aggressively. "And my rule is simple. People like you don't waltz into my courthouse without properly explaining yourselves. So start talking or start walking." Donovan had noticed the commotion and approached cautiously. His years of experience told him this situation was spiraling dangerously out of control, but Officer Mitchell technically outranked him at this location, and challenging him publicly would create its own set of problems. "Everything under control here, Mitchell?" Donovan asked diplomatically, his eyes scanning the growing crowd of onlookers. "Absolutely under control," Officer Mitchell replied. never taking his eyes off Dr. Nicole Bennett. Just explaining basic courthouse protocol to someone who obviously doesn't understand how things work around here. A courthouse administrator, Patricia Ellis, appeared at Donovan's shoulder. She had worked courthouse security for years and had never witnessed anything quite like this public spectacle. "Is there some kind of problem, officers?" Ellis asked, her professional training warring with her growing disbelief. Officer Mitchell gestured toward Dr. Nicole Bennett like she was Exhibit A in a criminal trial. "This individual is being completely uncooperative, refuses to explain her legitimate business here, won't follow simple security instructions. Classic disruptive behavior pattern." "I haven't refused anything," Dr. Nicole Bennett replied calmly, her voice carrying clearly through the increasingly quiet lobby. "I've asked to proceed through your security checkpoint and requested to speak with the supervisor. Those seem like entirely reasonable requests." Officer Mitchell's face flushed darker. Being contradicted publicly, especially by someone he considered fundamentally inferior, triggered something genuinely ugly inside him. "Don't you dare try to get smart with me," he snarled, jabbing his finger in her direction. "I know your exact type, always trying to play victim, always claiming discrimination when you're just being held accountable for once in your life." The phone cameras were recording everything now. Rodriguez looked physically nauseous. Donovan was reaching for his radio, probably to call for backup or request a higher-ranking supervisor to defuse the situation. "You want to know what I really think?" Officer Mitchell continued, his voice rising to address the entire crowd. "I think you saw this courthouse on some legal TV drama and decided to come here and cause trouble. Probably hoping to file some completely bogus lawsuit about being mistreated so you can get yourself a nice fat payday." The gathering had grown to a sizable crowd. Lawyers were canceling phone calls to witness the spectacle. Court staff whispered among themselves in shocked disbelief. This wasn't just wildly inappropriate behavior. It was a spectacular career-ending performance being broadcast live on multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Dr. Nicole Bennett glanced methodically around the room, taking detailed mental notes. Security cameras positioned at every conceivable angle. Multiple witnesses from diverse backgrounds and professions. Audio recording from the courthouse's comprehensive surveillance system. Evidence was accumulating exponentially by the second. "Officer Mitchell," she said evenly, reading his nameplate for the first time since the confrontation began. "I'm asking you one final time to allow me to proceed through this security checkpoint so I can conduct my legitimate business in this courthouse." Officer Mitchell's entire body language shifted into pure aggression. Being directly challenged in public, especially by someone he had already decided was beneath his consideration, unleashed the absolute worst aspects of his personality. "You're asking me? You don't ask me a damn thing." His voice echoed throughout the marble lobby. "You follow my explicit instructions, or you get the hell out of my courthouse right now." He jabbed his finger aggressively toward the main entrance doors. "There's your exit. Use it immediately before I decide you're creating a deliberate public disturbance and need to be arrested." Rodriguez finally found her courage and her voice. "Mitchell, this has gone way too far." We need to just do what, Rodriguez?" Officer Mitchell whirled on his colleague with genuine fury. "Let potential criminals waltz into our courthouse without proper screening procedures? Is that really what you want? Because that's exactly what happens when we get soft and stop doing our jobs properly." He spun back toward Dr. Nicole Bennett, his voice now dripping with pure contempt and barely controlled rage. "Last chance, lady. Give me a detailed explanation of your specific business in this courthouse right now, or get out of my sight permanently and make it quick. I don't have all day to waste dealing with people who fundamentally don't know their proper place." The briefcase sat motionless on the conveyor belt like a ticking time bomb. Inside were credentials that would detonate Officer Mitchell's entire career in seconds, but he was far too busy performing his dominance display for his imaginary audience to notice the approaching danger. The courthouse lobby had transformed into an amphitheater of anticipation. Nearly 50 people now formed a loose semicircle around the security checkpoint, their phones capturing every word, every gesture, every moment of Officer Mitchell's professional suicide. Dr. Nicole Bennett surveyed the crowd with the calculating eye of someone who had spent her career building cases. Witnesses, evidence, documentation, everything she needed was accumulating in real time. "Officer Mitchell," she said, her voice carrying a new authority that made several onlookers lean forward. I need your badge number and full name for my report. Officer Mitchell's laugh was pure venom. Your report? Your report? He slapped his thigh theatrically. Lady, you're not filing any report on me. I don't answer to people like you ever. Patricia Ellis stepped forward, her administrator instincts finally overriding her shock. Officer, perhaps we should de-escalate this situation. There's nothing to de-escalate, Officer Mitchell snapped, cutting her off mid-sentence. This woman is causing a disturbance, refusing to follow security protocols, and now making threats about filing complaints. That's textbook disruptive behavior. He turned back to Dr. Nicole Bennett, his chest puffed out with artificial authority. You want my supervisor? Fine, I'll get my supervisor. But when Lieutenant Edward Grant gets down here, you're going to explain to him why you're wasting everyone's time with your attitude problem. Rodriguez couldn't stay silent any longer. Mitchell, maybe we should just let her go through security like everyone else. This is getting out of hand. Rodriguez, I'm warning you. Officer Mitchell's voice carried a genuine menace. Now, stop undermining my authority or you'll be writing reports all week. I know how to handle situations like this. Donovan finally keyed his radio. Control, this is Donovan at the main checkpoint. We need a supervisor down here immediately. We have a situation developing. The radio crackled back. Copy that, Donovan. Lieutenant Grant is en route. Officer Mitchell's grin widened. Perfect. Now you'll get to meet someone who actually has authority around here. And trust me, Lieutenant Grant doesn't tolerate troublemakers any better than I do. More courthouse staff had emerged from various offices, drawn by the commotion. A bailiff from Judge Harrison's courtroom whispered something to a court reporter who immediately pulled out her own phone to record. Dr. Nicole Bennett remained perfectly still, her briefcase untouched on the conveyor belt. Officer Mitchell, while we're waiting for your supervisor, could you please explain your department's policy on treating courthouse visitors with respect? Officer Mitchell's face darkened further. Don't try to lecture me about respect. Respect is earned, and you haven't earned anything except an escort out of this building. A young attorney in a sharp suit had been watching from the beginning. He stepped forward, his voice professional but firm. Excuse me, officer, but I've been observing this interaction, and I believe this woman has been entirely cooperative. Officer Mitchell whirled on him. Nobody asked for your opinion, counselor. Mind your own business unless you want to join her on the way out. The attorney didn't back down. Actually, officer, inappropriate treatment of courthouse visitors is everyone's business, especially when it's being recorded by dozens of people. Officer Mitchell's eyes darted around the crowd, suddenly aware of just how many cameras were pointing in his direction. But instead of backing down, his ego doubled down. Let them record. They're about to see how we handle people who don't follow the rules. He jabbed his finger at Dr. Nicole Bennett again. You've got about 30 seconds to start explaining yourself before Lieutenant Grant gets here, and this becomes an official incident. Ellis tried one more time. Officer Mitchell, as courthouse administrator, I really think we should... You think what? That I should let people waltz in here without proper screening? That I should ignore my training and just wave everyone through? Officer Mitchell was shouting now, his voice echoing off the marble walls. That's not how security works. The elevator chimed. Lieutenant Edward Grant, a tall man with graying temples and decades of experience, stepped into the lobby. His eyes immediately took in the crowd, the cameras, and Officer Mitchell's aggressive posture. What's going on here? Lieutenant Grant's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Officer Mitchell straightened, suddenly remembering he was supposed to be a professional. Lieutenant, this individual has been uncooperative and disruptive. She's refusing to follow security protocols and making threats about filing complaints. Lieutenant Grant's experienced eyes scanned the scene. The diverse crowd of witnesses, the multiple recording devices, the woman standing calmly by the metal detector while Officer Mitchell appeared flustered and aggressive. Ma'am, Lieutenant Grant addressed Dr. Nicole Bennett directly. Could you please explain your version of events? Before Dr. Nicole Bennett could respond, Officer Mitchell interrupted. Lieutenant, she's been trying to manipulate the situation from the beginning. Classic victim-playing behavior. I was just doing my job when she started making demands and... Officer Mitchell. Lieutenant Grant's voice carried unmistakable authority. I asked her to speak. The crowd collectively held its breath. This was the moment when everything would either de-escalate or explode completely. Dr. Nicole Bennett looked at Lieutenant Grant, then at Officer Mitchell, then at the briefcase that contained the credentials to end this nightmare instantly. But she made a calculated decision. Let the system reveal itself completely. "Lieutenant Grant," she said quietly, "I'd like to file a formal complaint." Lieutenant Grant's expression grew increasingly grave as he surveyed the scene. Dozens of witnesses, multiple recording devices, and one of his officers clearly out of control. Decades of experience told him this situation was already beyond salvage, but he had to try. "Ma'am, I apologize for any confusion," Lieutenant Grant began diplomatically. "If you could just help me understand what happened here." Officer Mitchell couldn't contain himself. "Lieutenant, don't let her manipulate you too. This is exactly what these people do. They create problems and then play victim when we try to maintain order." Lieutenant Grant's jaw tightened. "Officer Mitchell, you need to step back and let me handle this." "But sir, you don't understand the full situation. This woman has been disruptive from the moment she walked in here. She's probably got a criminal record, maybe outstanding warrants." "Mitchell," Lieutenant Grant's voice cracked like a whip. "That's enough." The crowd sensed the approaching climax. Phone cameras zoomed in closer. The young attorney who had spoken up earlier positioned himself for a better view. Rodriguez looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Dr. Nicole Bennett finally spoke, her voice carrying a quiet authority that made everyone lean forward. "Lieutenant Grant, I appreciate your professionalism. However, I think this situation requires more than an apology. Ma'am, I assure you we'll conduct a full investigation into today's incident," Lieutenant Grant replied. "Officer Mitchell's behavior was completely inappropriate, and there will be consequences." Officer Mitchell's face went pale. "Lieutenant, you're taking her word over mine, after years of loyal service." Lieutenant Grant ignored him completely. "Ma'am, if you'd like to file a formal complaint, I can provide you with the proper paperwork and put you in contact with Internal Affairs." Dr. Nicole Bennett nodded slowly. "That won't be necessary, Lieutenant." She walked calmly to the conveyor belt where her briefcase had sat throughout the entire confrontation. The crowd watched in complete silence as she opened it with deliberate precision. "Because I'll be handling this through proper channels myself." Her hand emerged holding a leather credential wallet. She flipped it open, revealing a gold badge that caught the courthouse lighting like a beacon. "I'm Police Chief Nicole Bennett, Baltimore Police Department." The silence was deafening. Lieutenant Grant's eyes widened in horror as the full magnitude of the disaster became clear. Officer Mitchell's mouth fell open, his brain struggling to process information that didn't fit his worldview. Rodriguez whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath. Donovan actually stepped backward as if distance might somehow reduce his association with the catastrophe. The crowd erupted in whispers, gasps, and the rapid-fire clicking of phone cameras capturing the moment. Officer Mitchell's world collapsed. That's not possible," Officer Mitchell stammered, his voice barely audible. "Anyone can buy a fake badge. This is some kind of setup." Lieutenant Grant moved quickly to examine the credentials. His face went from pale to green as he recognized the authentic Baltimore PD Chief's badge, complete with official seal and identification number. "Chief Bennett," Lieutenant Grant's voice was barely steady. I don't know what to say. This is unconscionable." The young attorney in the crowd couldn't help himself. "I believe the phrase you're looking for is career-ending disaster." Nervous laughter rippled through the onlookers. Officer Mitchell looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route or a time machine. Dr. Nicole Bennett's voice remained calm and professional. "Lieutenant Grant, Officer Mitchell has violated multiple departmental policies, engaged in clear discriminatory behavior, and created a hostile environment for courthouse visitors. This was all captured on security cameras and recorded by dozens of witnesses." Lieutenant Grant nodded grimly. "Chief Bennett, this department will take immediate action. Officer Mitchell is suspended from duty pending a full internal affairs investigation." "Suspended?" Officer Mitchell's voice cracked. "For what? Doing my job? You're suspending me because of some trumped-up discrimination claim?" Dr. Nicole Bennett turned to face Officer Mitchell directly for the first time since revealing her identity. Her voice carried the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. "Officer Mitchell, in the course of this confrontation you have referred to me as a ghetto rat, suggested I was here about a baby daddy, accused me of welfare fraud, implied I was planning to file a false lawsuit, and told me I needed to know my place. all while blocking my legitimate access to this courthouse. She gestured to the crowd of witnesses. Fortunately, dozens of people recorded your behavior. The security cameras captured every word, and your own colleagues watched you violate basic civil rights protections. Officer Mitchell's face cycled through expressions: confusion, denial, panic, and finally desperate anger. This is entrapment. You set me up. You came in here dressed like what, Officer Mitchell? Dr. Nicole Bennett's voice was steel-wrapped in velvet, like a professional black woman conducting legitimate business in a public courthouse. Is that grounds for the treatment you gave me? Lieutenant Grant stepped between them, his damage control instincts finally kicking in. Chief Bennett, on behalf of this department and the city, I offer our sincerest apologies. This behavior is completely unacceptable and does not represent our values. Patricia Ellis, the courthouse administrator, had been frantically texting during the revelation. Chief Bennett, I've contacted the chief judge. He wants to meet with you immediately to discuss enhanced bias training for all courthouse security personnel. The crowd had grown even larger as word spread through the building. Lawyers delayed court appearances to witness the aftermath. Court reporters abandoned their posts to record history in the making. Rodriguez finally found the courage to approach. Chief Bennett, I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry I didn't stop this earlier. Dr. Nicole Bennett nodded, acknowledging. Detective Rodriguez, you were in a difficult position, but now you know what failure to intervene looks like. Remember this feeling. Officer Mitchell made one last desperate attempt. This isn't over. I've got union representation. I've got rights. You can't just destroy my career because I was doing my job. Dr. Nicole Bennett's response was quiet but devastating. Officer Mitchell, you destroyed your own career the moment you decided to judge me based on the color of my skin rather than the content of my character. She closed her credential wallet and returned it to her briefcase. Lieutenant Grant, I'll expect a full report on your internal affairs investigation. I'll also be recommending immediate bias training for your entire courthouse security detail. Lieutenant Grant nodded rapidly. Of course, Chief Bennett. Whatever you need. Officer Mitchell stood frozen, finally understanding that his career had just ended in the most public, humiliating way possible. The phones kept recording, the evidence kept accumulating, and justice, delayed by a public display of discrimination, was finally about to be served. The Philadelphia Police Department's Internal Affairs Division buzzed with activity. Detective Amy Collins, a veteran with a reputation for thoroughness, had been assigned to lead what everyone knew would be the most scrutinized investigation in department history. The evidence room looked like a multimedia production studio. Security footage from multiple courthouse cameras sat stacked beside dozens of cell phone videos uploaded to social media. Audio recordings from the courthouse security system provided crystal clear documentation of every word. Witness statements filled separate filing cabinets. Collins reviewed the security footage, watching Officer Mitchell's face transform from bored indifference to active malice to absolute panic. The cameras had captured everything, every gesture, every sneer, every moment of his professional destruction. Her phone rang. Detective Collins, this is Captain Victor Lopez. The chief wants a status update on the Mitchell investigation. Captain, I've never seen evidence this comprehensive. We have visual documentation, audio recordings, and dozens of separate witness statements. This isn't just misconduct, it's a civil rights violation with federal implications. The investigation had exploded beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a single incident had uncovered a pattern of systematic discrimination that reached deep into the department's culture. Collins's team had spent time cataloging evidence. The courthouse security footage alone provided multiple angles of Officer Mitchell's tirade. Each camera captured different moments: his dismissive gestures, his aggressive posturing, his complete transformation when he realized who Dr. Nicole Bennett was. But the cell phone footage told an even more damning story. Separate videos had been uploaded to social media within hours of the incident. The hashtag trended nationally. Legal experts on CNN were calling it the most documented case of police discrimination in recent history. Meanwhile, in a sterile interview room down the hall, Officer Ryan Mitchell sat across from Internal Affairs Lieutenant Frank Wilson. Officer Mitchell's union representative, Attorney Michael Brooks, reviewed files with increasing dismay. Officer Mitchell, Wilson began, you've reviewed the security footage. Would you like to revise your initial statement? Officer Mitchell's story had changed multiple times. First, he had claimed Dr. Nicole Bennett was uncooperative and suspicious. When shown the video evidence, he switched to following standard security protocols. Now, faced with audio recordings of his exact words, he was attempting a final desperate defense. "Lieutenant, I was having a bad day. Personal problems at home. My wife filed for divorce. I haven't been sleeping. It wasn't about race. I treat everyone the same way when they don't follow procedures." Attorney Brooks winced visibly. "Ryan, perhaps we should discuss plea options." "I'm not racist," Officer Mitchell continued, his voice rising to near hysteria. "I've worked with black officers for years. Detective Rodriguez is Puerto Rican. Ask her if I ever treated her badly. I've got black friends from high school. This is all being blown out of proportion because she's a police chief and I didn't recognize her." Lieutenant Wilson slid a thick folder across the table. "Officer Mitchell, these are complaint records from your personnel file. Multiple separate incidents, all involving minorities, all describing identical behavior patterns." Officer Mitchell's face went pale as Wilson began reading methodically. "Mrs. Dorothy Hayes, Officer Mitchell called me aggressive and told me people like me always cause problems when we don't get our way. Andre Jefferson, Officer Mitchell said I looked suspicious walking near the courthouse and told me to go back where I came from. Sophia Martinez, Officer Mitchell made derogatory comments about cleaning ladies and suggested I didn't belong in a professional building." The list continued. Each complaint described identical behavior, racial profiling, verbal harassment, abuse of authority, and systematic humiliation of minorities who couldn't effectively fight back. Brooks interrupted desperately. "Lieutenant, those complaints were all properly investigated and dismissed due to insufficient evidence." "They were dismissed," Wilson replied coldly, "because they were individual incidents with no witnesses and no recordings. This time we have comprehensive documentation from every possible angle." Officer Mitchell's desperation was palpable now. Those people were lying. They always lie when they get caught breaking rules. They cry racism every time someone holds them accountable. The room fell silent. Even Brooks looked mortified by his client's words. Wilson leaned forward. "Officer Mitchell, do you understand that you're being recorded right now? Will these statements become part of your permanent record?" Back in Detective Collins's office, the phone rang constantly. Media requests, legal inquiries, and calls from community organizations flooded the switchboard. But the most significant calls came from unexpected sources. "Detective Collins, this is Mrs. Evelyn Henderson. I saw the news about that officer at the courthouse. I want to tell you what he did to me." Over the next hours, Collins's phone didn't stop ringing. Victims who had suffered similar treatment but never reported it began coming forward in unprecedented numbers. The pattern became undeniably systematic. David Morales, a courthouse maintenance supervisor. "Officer Mitchell made me empty my entire toolbox multiple times, called me by the wrong name even though I corrected him repeatedly, and my name tag clearly said David. He said people like me were probably casing the building for break-ins later." Sarah Lee, a certified court translator. "He always made comments about my accent, asking if I was here legally, if my certification was legitimate. Made me show my credentials every single time I entered the building. I dreaded going to work because of him." James Carter, a veteran civil rights attorney with decades of experience. "Mitchell questioned my bar certification, suggested I might be impersonating a lawyer, made me show my ID multiple times. In decades of practice, no one had ever treated me like a criminal for doing my job." Reverend Samuel Brown, who regularly attended hearings to support community members, said Mitchell told me the church was down the street when I said I was there for court proceedings. He said people like me should stick to praying and leave legal matters to qualified people. Each story followed the same devastating pattern: unprovoked hostility, racial assumptions, abuse of authority, and systematic humiliation of minorities who couldn't effectively fight back against a uniformed officer. Detective Collins called Chief Bennett directly. "Chief, we're not just looking at one incident anymore. This is systematic discrimination spanning years. Mitchell created a hostile environment for every minority who entered that courthouse." The investigation team expanded to include federal agents. The FBI's Civil Rights Division opened a parallel investigation into potential federal violations. The Department of Justice announced they were reviewing the case for criminal prosecution. The union's position collapsed completely. Attorney Brooks requested an emergency meeting with internal affairs leadership. My client is willing to accept immediate termination and resign quietly if criminal charges are dropped and this doesn't go federal, Brooks offered desperately. Lieutenant Wilson's response was immediate and uncompromising. That's not our decision to make anymore. The district attorney's office is reviewing this case for state civil rights violations. The FBI is investigating federal charges. Officer Mitchell's employment status is the least of his concerns. Meanwhile, Chief Bennett had initiated her own parallel investigation into systemic problems. Her team reviewed courthouse security protocols, training programs, and supervision procedures that had allowed Officer Mitchell's behavior to continue unchecked for years. The findings were damning. Officer Mitchell's supervisors had received multiple informal complaints but never documented them. Training records showed he had skipped mandatory bias awareness sessions. Performance evaluations praised his proactive security approach without examining what that actually meant. Detective Rodriguez, haunted by her failure to intervene, volunteered for a recorded interview that became the investigation's most damning testimony from within the department. I watched Officer Mitchell treat minorities differently for a long time, Rodriguez admitted, her voice breaking with emotion. I told myself it wasn't my business, that someone else with more authority would handle it. I was a coward. I let innocent people suffer because I was afraid of confrontation and retaliation. Sergeant Donovan's testimony was equally devastating. Mitchell bragged about keeping undesirables out of the courthouse. He called it proactive security and maintaining standards. We all knew what he really meant, but no one wanted to be the officer who reported a colleague. The investigation expanded beyond Mitchell to examine supervisory failures at every level. How had multiple formal complaints been dismissed without proper investigation? Why had no supervisor noticed the obvious pattern? Who was ultimately responsible for the training failures and cultural problems that produced such behavior? Lieutenant Edward Grant found himself under intense scrutiny as well. His personnel file revealed a pattern of protecting problematic officers, dismissing minority complaints as misunderstandings, and prioritizing department reputation over accountability and reform. As the investigation progressed, Detective Collins compiled her preliminary findings. The scope had grown far beyond a single officer's misconduct. This represents systematic failure at every level, Collins reported to her supervisors. Individual bias enabled by inadequate training, reinforced by supervisory indifference, and protected by institutional culture that prioritized loyalty over justice. Chief Bennett reviewed the expanding investigation from her Baltimore office, her anger now tempered by grim determination. This couldn't just be about punishing one officer. It had to be about preventing the next Officer Mitchell from destroying lives with complete impunity. The investigation's final phase would determine whether this moment of accountability would create lasting systemic change or simply become another cautionary tale forgotten by the next news cycle. After the investigation concluded, the Philadelphia Police Department's conference room buzzed with tension as the disciplinary hearing convened. Chief Commissioner Linda Walsh presided over a panel that would determine Officer Mitchell's fate, though everyone present knew the outcome was foregone. Officer Mitchell sat at the defendant's table, his union attorney having abandoned his case after reviewing the overwhelming evidence. The new lawyer, a public defender assigned pro bono, looked like he would rather be anywhere else on earth. Officer Ryan Mitchell, Commissioner Walsh began, her voice carrying the weight of institutional authority. You've been found guilty of conduct unbecoming an officer, violation of civil rights, discriminatory harassment, and bringing disrepute to this department. You are hereby terminated from the Philadelphia Police Department, effective immediately, with forfeiture of all benefits and pension rights. Officer Mitchell's face crumpled. Years of service gone, his pension eliminated, his career in law enforcement permanently destroyed. But the consequences were just beginning. District Attorney Rachel Grant stepped forward with the criminal charges. Mr. Mitchell, you are hereby charged with violation of civil rights under color of authority, a federal felony carrying significant imprisonment. You will surrender yourself to federal marshals following these proceedings. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Federal charges meant this wasn't just about losing a job. Officer Mitchell faced real prison time. But the moment that truly defined the hearing came when the victim spoke. Mrs. Evelyn Henderson, the 73-year-old grandmother Officer Mitchell had humiliated, took the podium with dignity that filled the room. I raised 7 children, worked 2 jobs for decades, and never asked anyone for anything I didn't earn, she said, her voice steady despite her tears. That man made me feel like I was nothing, like I didn't belong in my own country's courthouse. But today, seeing him face consequences for his actions, I feel like maybe the system can work after all. Andre Jefferson, the college student who had considered abandoning his dream of law school, spoke next. Officer Mitchell didn't just humiliate me that day. He made me question whether people who look like me could ever find justice in America's courts. But Chief Bennett showed me that change is possible when good people refuse to accept injustice. One by one, multiple victims testified about the lasting impact of Officer Mitchell's systematic discrimination. Their stories painted a picture of institutional failure that had destroyed confidence in law enforcement among entire communities. Chief Bennett addressed the hearing panel directly. Commissioners, Officer Mitchell's behavior represents a cancer that has been allowed to metastasize within this department. Termination and prosecution are necessary but insufficient responses. We need systematic reform. In the following period, the changes were already visible throughout the Philadelphia courthouse system. Commissioner Walsh had implemented Chief Bennett's comprehensive reform package, mandatory bias training for all courthouse security personnel, body cameras at all checkpoints, civilian oversight of complaint investigations, and immediate suspension protocols for discriminatory behavior. Detective Carla Rodriguez, haunted by her failure to intervene during Officer Mitchell's tirade, had been promoted to training supervisor with a mandate to completely overhaul bias awareness programs. Her first initiative paired officers with community members who had experienced discrimination, creating powerful learning experiences that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. "I failed Chief Bennett and every victim that day," Rodriguez told her first training class, "but failure can become wisdom if we learn from it. Your job isn't just to avoid discriminating, it's to actively prevent discrimination by others." The statistical evidence of change was remarkable. Bias-related complaints at Philadelphia courthouse facilities dropped dramatically. More significantly, community confidence surveys showed dramatic improvement in how minorities viewed law enforcement interactions. Officer Mitchell himself was serving a federal sentence at a minimum security facility. His appeals exhausted, his future prospects eliminated. The union had quietly settled lawsuits with multiple victims for undisclosed amounts, while Officer Mitchell faced personal bankruptcy from legal fees. But perhaps the most powerful symbol of change came when Mrs. Evelyn Henderson returned to the same courthouse for her grandson's adoption hearing. The same security checkpoint where Officer Mitchell had humiliated her now welcomed her with professional courtesy and genuine respect. Detective Rodriguez personally escorted her through security, apologizing again for her failure to intervene. "Mrs. Henderson, your courage in speaking up helped change everything. Thank you for not giving up on us." The new security protocols worked flawlessly. No profiling, no harassment, no assumptions based on appearance, just professional, respectful service for every citizen who entered seeking justice. Young Andre Jefferson had indeed returned to law school, inspired by Chief Bennett's example and supported by a scholarship fund created by courthouse employees who wanted to demonstrate their commitment to change. The system hadn't just corrected one officer's behavior, it had transformed its entire approach to serving the community it was sworn to protect. Later, the Philadelphia County Courthouse operated with a culture so transformed that visitors who remembered the old days could hardly believe the change. Chief Nicole Bennett walked through the same security checkpoint where Officer Mitchell had destroyed his career, observing a system that now embodied the values it was always supposed to represent. The metal detector was staffed by Detective Carla Rodriguez, whose promotion to security supervisor had made her the face of institutional reform. She greeted each visitor with professional courtesy, regardless of their appearance, background, or purpose in the courthouse. "Good morning, Chief Bennett," Rodriguez said with genuine warmth. "Here for the quarterly review meeting." "Actually, I'm here to observe," Dr. Nicole Bennett replied, watching as a young black attorney navigated security without incident, his credentials respected, his presence welcomed. "I want to see how far we've come." The statistics told an incredible story. Bias complaints had fallen dramatically. Community confidence in courthouse security had risen to historic levels. Most importantly, the courthouse now served everyone with equal dignity and respect. Mrs. Evelyn Henderson, now a bit older, had become an unlikely symbol of the transformation. She volunteered regularly at the courthouse information desk, helping other citizens navigate the legal system with kindness and patience. Her presence reminded everyone that victims of discrimination could become agents of positive change. Andre Jefferson had graduated law school with honors and begun his career as a public defender, inspired by Chief Bennett's example of turning personal adversity into systematic reform. His first case involved representing a young man who had been discriminated against by courthouse security, proof that vigilance against bias must be eternal. Officer Mitchell's story had become a cautionary tale told in police academies nationwide. His federal sentence had been followed by permanent banishment from law enforcement, personal bankruptcy, and social ostracism. But more importantly, his downfall had catalyzed changes that prevented other officers from following his path. The courthouse now featured mandatory bias training on a regular schedule, civilian oversight of all complaint investigations, and immediate suspension protocols for discriminatory behavior. Body cameras at every checkpoint ensured accountability, while community liaisons provided ongoing feedback about security interactions. Chief Bennett reflected on the broader lessons as she prepared to leave. Individual prejudice, when left unchecked by proper training and supervision, could destroy lives and undermine public trust in institutions designed to serve everyone equally. But systematic accountability, when combined with genuine commitment to change, could transform entire cultures. Her phone buzzed with a text from Detective Rodriguez. "Chief, thank you for showing us what real leadership looks like. The courthouse is better because you refused to stay silent." As Dr. Nicole Bennett walked toward the exit, she passed a diverse group of citizens accessing their courthouse without fear, harassment, or discrimination. Young and old, every race and ethnicity, all treated with the respect that should be every American's birthright. The security officer at the door, a young black woman recently graduated from the police academy, smiled and held the door open. "Have a great day, Chief Bennett. Thank you for everything you've done for our community." Change was possible, justice could prevail, but only when good people refused to remain silent in the face of injustice. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and chosen to speak up? What would you do if you saw someone being treated the way Chief Bennett was treated? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Black Soul Stories for more stories of justice, accountability, and positive change. Because every voice matters, and every action can make a difference. Remember, the system only changes when we demand better, and we all have the power to demand. In the end, what happened at that Philadelphia courthouse wasn't just one man's spectacular downfall. It was a powerful reminder that every single one of us carries the quiet responsibility to choose kindness over cruelty, respect over judgment, and courage over silence. Dr. Nicole Bennett didn't raise her voice or lose her composure that day. She simply stood there with dignity while a stranger tried to strip her of it, and in doing so, she exposed how quickly prejudice can poison a system meant to serve justice. But the real heroes weren't only her. They were the witnesses who pulled out their phones, the colleagues who finally found their voices, and the victims who later found the strength to speak up. Their collective courage proved that one moment of integrity can ripple outward and change everything. This story leaves us with a deeply moving truth. Real change doesn't begin in courtrooms or policy meetings. It begins inside each of us, in the small decisions we make when no one important is watching. When we see someone being diminished because of how they look, where they come from, or who we assume they are, we have a choice: to look away and stay comfortable, or to stand up and protect someone's humanity. Nicole Bennett's Grace Under Fire showed us that dignity is unbreakable when paired with truth. And every person who refused to stay silent that day reminded us that silence, in the face of injustice, is a form of complicity. So tell me in the comments, have you ever witnessed discrimination and wished you had spoken up? Or have you been the one who found the courage to say something? What would you do if you were standing in that security line and saw a fellow human being treated that way? Drop your honest thoughts below. I read every single one. And if this story touched your heart or opened your eyes, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss these powerful real-life lessons. Together, by sharing our stories and choosing courage, we can keep pushing this world toward the justice and respect every person deserves. Your voice truly matters.